Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Jack Groppel.
And I'm Dr. Haley Perlus. And right from the beginning, no fluff. We're going to jump in and share why Jack and I are leading this podcast together. And I thought it all started before I was born, but in fact, I was actually 3 years old when Jack coined the term corporate athlete. Is that right, Jack?
Yeah, that's actually true. Actually, when you were 2 years old, I heard a world-class athlete who was in the twilight of his career. He was asked in a Q&A, what are you going to do when your career's over? And he said, I'm going to take everything I've learned as an athlete, I'm going to apply it to my business life. And later on, as I kept reflecting on that, I went, oh my gosh, he's going to become a corporate athlete. And and in 1983, I trademarked the term when I was a professor at the University of Illinois. And then just started building out ideas and content. And then I left I left Illinois. I had tenure. I gave up a tenured position and went to Saddlebrook Resort. I had three positions. I was the director of player development for the Harry Hopman Saddlebrook International Tennis Camp. I was the director of tennis at the resort, and I was the director of sports and health development where I oversaw the spa. So I had no jobs whatsoever, right, Haley?
None.
Yeah, so that was in 87. And then in 1992, Dr. Jim Lair and I were able to join forces and we created what was going to become the Human Performance Institute later on.
And
And
then
that's
what
why
did?
we're here.
Yeah, it did become the Human Performance Institute.
Right.
And that was an organization that I was following for, and I don't want to say my career because I didn't have a career. I was, 17 years old when
Right.
I started reading your books. And I always knew since I was 12 that I wanted to be a sports psychologist. But the idea of working in the corporate world never even fazed me. I thought I would only work in sports, marry a quarterback, and just have that wonderful sport life. And then the Human Performance Institute, well, I discovered the Human Performance Institute and I literally picked up the phone and I called and I asked if I could be their coach. And they said no, they don't need any more. It wasn't you, Jack. You weren't on the phone.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, no, they said they had all the facilitators they needed. They weren't looking for anyone. And you were based in Orlando, and I made up a lie. And this is kind of going to the whole point, not telling everyone to go and lie, but this goes to the point of kind of jumping into the deep end when you know your purpose in life. But I made a lie and I told the woman on the phone that I was actually going to be in Orlando working with some water skiers. And while I'm there, could I just come over and get a tour of the campus? And so she accepted that. And I went over and we had lunch. And by the end of lunch, she allowed me to audition. So I went and I took the 2.5 day course and I auditioned. And then I got the job. And my first facilitation was, I think, one of your last.
Yeah, I think the day that was my last, and we had some very heavy hitters in my class, and I met you on a break on my last course and your first.
And you were, and I'm not just saying this because you're listening and watching and talking with me right now, but Jackie, you were amazing
Wow.
because this was one of your last days. You were with some celebrities
Yeah.
and you stopped and spoke to me for probably 5 minutes. And you hugged me and you smiled and you said, "Welcome to the team." And the way you presented yourself and the way you made me feel so welcomed and warm, well, I just felt honored and I felt like I could ask you anything. And so I did.
It kind of.
I very quickly asked you to sponsor me as a Canadian for my work visa.
I've never been asked something so quickly, so important in my life, I don't think.
There was something about you, and I think this is really important because you just never know the impact you're going to have on others.
Right. That's very true.
And you had an impact on me that gave me the courage. Now, I would consider myself to be a courageous individual,
Mhm.
picking up the phone and literally basically cold calling you. But you also made it okay for me to take that leap of faith. And then fast forward to a few years later, it's actually almost a year ago to this day. So it was November 2024.
Oh my gosh.
So actually, at the time, I think we're going to be airing this later, but the time of this recording right now, we can say that it's still in 2025. But so almost a year ago, I called you and I said, I've gained confidence. I have, great content. I feel like I'm ready to explode my business. Help me do what you did.
I
And what did
remember.
you do?
Well, I said, let's put the brakes on. And I said, I want you to, and obviously we know each other. So the listener understands we do know each other right now.
Yeah.
We've coached, we've had conversations. And I said, well, Haley, I need you to step back a little bit and really look into your heart about what you want to do in your life. Because if you want to do what I did in my career, it's going to take a certain kind of focus. So here's what I'd like you to do, Haley. This is what I remember this clearly. And I do this with a lot of people all the time. And so for the listeners, have at it. Maybe you'll share it with us. Maybe you'll message us and let us know what you came up with. But I said, I want you to identify 10 things if you had no limitations in your life. If there was no relationship, money wasn't an issue, family wasn't no concerns whatsoever, no limitations whatsoever. I want you to identify 10 things you'd like to do in your life. And then I said, that's it. Because what I want to look at are what are the trends that really motivate you? What really floats your boat? And and I just stopped at that point because I want to see where your heart takes you when you do such an exercise. And you did.
I did. And all of those 10 things really highlighted my top three values in life.
So what
Love.
was my response when you first sent it to me?
What was my
No,
response?
when you first sent it to me, before you tell the listener what your three were, what was my, you sent it to me,
Yes.
and what was my response?
You're not going to do the
Not,
business that I did.
I said, no, you're not going to do what I did. Do
And
you
the
remember
reason
that?
I absolutely did. You said there is no. In fact, I think your words were, I'm not going to let you
Yeah, that's right.
create a business like I did.
Right. And it wasn't like I was damping down your dreams. In fact, what I was doing was trying to let your dreams flow.
Absolutely.
I think I just thought you had to refocus your dream a little bit. What was really on your heart. So now you
Right.
can tell the listener what you came up with.
Yeah, so all of my list pointed to my three top values in life, which are love, health, and adventure.
Mhm.
And so I talked about certain trips that I want to take with my then boyfriend, now husband. And then I talked about all biking at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and getting outside and enjoying the sunshine. So working in the morning, I'm not afraid, I'm happy to work at night, but in the middle of the day, I want to be outside. And I listed all of these things that I could not do if I was going to live the life you did.
That's right. And I think that comes back to aligning yourself and aligning your actions with your three focuses, your foci. And were you able to do that, you think, in the last year?
I have to tell you, two things. Number one is my values have never been so in my face, but it's because I'm intentionally exposing myself, bringing like doing things to live my values. And in addition to that, my business has never been so good.
So now that takes us then the how can we help the listener understand how purpose and career, how we can align those and for fulfillment, our performance in our lives and our well-being in general. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me share a story just recently. In 2 days ago, there's this group of collegiate athletes. So there are going to be participants in this charity. It's a nonprofit organization, but there's a clear mission to help athletes enjoy their job, their sport, but
Mhm.
then also lead fulfilling lives, right? Get the most out of their life. And I was having a meeting with the committee, with the hiring committee, and they asked me what title I would want to present. And I would want to present one of the titles that you taught me. And it is literally about purpose and career development. It is your identity. And I talked about how all of, athletics and our careers, our jobs, they're roles in our lives. but they're not our identity.
Mm.
And I have learned that my values and who I am as a person, my attributes, my characteristics, and those three things, or sorry, and what I want to, the impact I want to have in this world, those three things is my purpose. And then I apply those three things to all the various roles I have in my life. And they looked at me and they asked me very clearly, why isn't this mainstream? Why aren't we all talking about it? And it's interesting because I looked at them and I said, in fact, in my circle, my mentor, Jack Groppel, has been talking about it for how many years, Jack?
Long time. It's a long time. Now we've talked about purpose runs the light show. We used to say purpose runs the performance light show. Whoever you are, whatever your purpose is, that runs you.
But
Or
it's
it should.
obviously not mainstream. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
So we're
Haley,
here
this
to
has been
make
around
it.
for so long. I'll tell you a story from a couple of decades ago. And I won't say the company, but I was leading a session, and it was one of our 2.5 day sessions. And there was one man in the back of the room, and he could just tell, for whatever reason, it wasn't sitting with him. And all of a sudden, his hand goes up. We're talking about purpose, and his hand goes up. And I can tell, when you've done it as long as I have, you can tell when somebody's gunning for you. And he was coming after me. I could just see it like this, and I'm going, yes. And he was he had to do with soap and detergent. That was the business he was in, and he was an executive. And just blurted out, "How do you tell me how I have a sense of purpose around selling soap?" Now, if you just stop there, to your point, he wasn't dealing with purpose at all. He was dealing with his action of his job. And so what I did, I resorted, and it's a very famous exercise. The first time I ever read about it was in Jim Collins's book, Built to Last, the first way back when. And it's the five whys.
Mm,
I said, "Well, why are you doing this?" And he said, "I'm making an income." "Well, why does that matter?" "Well, I'm taking care of my family." By the time I got to the fifth why, are you ready, Haley? By the
I'm
time I
ready.
got to the fifth why, they were donating soap and clean water or cleanliness to impoverished nations in third world countries. I mean, I kind of repeated myself, but they were taking care of impoverished nations with cleanliness. And he started crying
Mhm,
by the time because he said, "Gosh, I'd never let myself go that deep to
mhm,
understand this." And I'm not saying yay for me. It's just we don't allow ourselves to bring purpose into our lives sometimes.
mhm.
And that's where I think is such a that's why somebody will say that, why isn't this mainstream? It can be, but we have to allow purpose. We have to live our purpose. We have to identify it. What matters most to people? That's my favorite question. What matters most to you right now? That's how you make decisions.
Yeah.
So it's been around for a long, long time, but the same problem's been around for a long, long time.
And so let me ask you, and then I'll go into how you saved me
Okay.
from who knows what, burnout, not living my purpose, getting lost in the shuffle, doing all the things I think I
Mhm.
should be doing instead of the things that I'm truly connected to.
Mhm.
But how did you discover your purpose? Where did you feel like you misaligned that you can teach us, and where were you in alignment?
Wow. How much time do we have?
Right. Well,
Well,
listen, there are going to be
uh,
upcoming episodes where we continue to talk about this.
Well, I will say this, that I do have my memoir. I'm writing my memoir right now, and it's going to be out soon. And I tell this whole story. I'll do it give you the cliff notes. That in 1996, I almost died. I got a staph infection, and I was in a hospital for 15 days. So here I am, this man who's done all this work, championing his life and his achievements and everything else. A lot of people knew who I was, especially in the tennis industry. And I had one person outside my family come to visit me. And I said, "Oh, this is bad. This is awful." I said, "I got to stop this." So I got on a path to improve and connect to my purpose and identify it. But I don't think it really hit me until 2008 when I went to China by myself and adopted my son.
Mm,
And God has a sense of humor. He's going to send a man in his mid 50s to China by himself, and he's going to put a 4-year-old in his arms that hates his guts. You can't speak. All you've got, he can't speak English and you can't speak Mandarin. All you've got is touch, tone of voice, and your actions. and you're going to teach you how to love somebody. And I believe the combination of intellectually wanting to change in the late 90s to that happening in the late 2000s just flipped my world upside down. I mean, I learned how to be totally other focused, and yet still perform my job at a high level, but to be other focused in my life. But it was a journey for me, and that's why I'm kind of glad I'm telling my story finally.
Right. Like that journey that you just explained was in 1 minute, but your memoirs goes into detail. So,
A lot of details.
for everyone who's interested to really dive into that, because it is, first of all, the story is touching. I've read it,
Thank you.
extremely touching. But then the way you share your story resonates with all of us. And
Mm.
for me, it taught me a lesson that I actually used, a lesson that I implemented. And so I am grateful to you too. And so today, where is your purpose? How is your purpose in alignment?
I can tell
Because
you my mission statement. I can literally recite my mission statement, my purpose.
I can too. You go first.
Okay. To be the man, the father, the uncle, the brother, the godfather, the cousin, and the leader that God created me to be. That's my purpose statement.
And how does it help you today?
It anchors everything I do.
Yeah.
Everything I do is why am I do what am I doing right now? So I'll talk to my nephews. I'll talk to my son. I've got so many friends, What brings this whole story full circle is when I was left alone in 1996 and abandoned, I was hospitalized a year and a half ago here in Florida in my home, and I was in the hospital for 3 days, and I had willingly volunteered to be involved in my new community. I'd only been here 3 months, but I was surrounded by people in the hospital. And that's how my book ends, is going from alone and abandoned to being surrounded by people in the same situation. But that takes work on our part to be other focused. So
Yeah,
I've been
it
living out.
takes work and it takes an intention and
Correct.
it is effort too, right? It's not gonna, it feels weird.
It does, but you feel the best when you're the best for others,
Yeah.
not when you're the best for yourself. You feel the best when you're the best for others.
Yeah. I think it feels weird, but that and right at the same time
Yeah, it
because you're
does.
at your best. And that's what
100.
you teach. That's what I now teach too. So for those people who are wanting to engage in these exercises, how we find our purpose. For me, we started with the values, right? You asked me to write down, it was a list of 10 things, and then it was also what I want my day to day to look like.
Right.
And so that helped me discover my values of love, health, and adventure. And then
Mm,
also, who am I as a person?
I
I'm
love that.
bright, I'm
Yeah,
full-hearted, and I'm a strength magnet. And what do I want to do for others? Is since I was 12 years old, I wanted to be a sports psychologist. But what did that mean
that's funny.
that I wanted to be at 12 years old?
At 12 years old, that's great.
We'll tell that story at some point. But at 12 years old, I wanted to do this. And what does that really mean? It means that I wanted to help others put medals around their necks. In other words, I wanted to help others be champions of their lives. So, what's my purpose? To highlight all of our strengths so that we can be the champions of our lives full of love, health, and adventure.
Oh, wow. Love that. Love that. So would you encourage our listeners to make their purpose statement?
Absolutely. And again, what's cool about this work is that it's not just, hey, what's your purpose?
Yeah.
Look at your best self, look at your values, look at what it means to be, what did you say, other focused?
Other focused. To be
Other
other focused,
focused.
not self-focused. See, sometimes this really doesn't have anything to do with egotism either. Sometimes we live a self-centered life because we're so busy, we're doing so much, and we're trying to do so much, we become very self-centered. It's really not egotistical. You're just self-centered. You don't even know you're self-centered. Um, but at the end of the day, your life does revolve around you and what you need to do. And if you just pause for a second and say, what can I do for someone else? And start small. Like what's one thing that I could do for somebody else today? One thing. And then start small and you'll find you're suddenly thinking about that all the time. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do? How can I support you?
Well, it's one of the greatest ways to help people with depression is to help them start helping others.
Exactly
But,
right.
but if we put all those three things together, so helping others, other focused, best self and your values, you put all three of those things together. Now you can start creating your purpose statement. And what you did for me, which is basically what I believe is how we're here right now with the You Don't Know Jack podcast, is you allowed me to bring my purpose back to the focal point, back to the center. And you saved me probably decades. You probably saved me decades and possibly burnout. And, going places where I should, that whole you should be doing this, getting on planes like you did for, I was going to say days, but we're talking years
7
in
million
your
miles.
case.
7 million miles, 52 countries.
Right. And I still get on planes. But in addition to getting on planes, guess what? I'm biking with my husband at 2 in the afternoon.
No,
And I get to travel and I get to work at home and I get to participate in what I love most about my career. And then one day you called me up and you said, Haley, and I've read your memoirs, you already shared that with me, but you said, in addition to this, in addition to my book, I have a passion project and I want you to be a part of it.
that's right. Because, see, the reason I want to help people right now at this stage in my life is I got my butt kicked so much. I mean, everybody, I don't claim to be an expert. If I am an expert, it's because I got my butt kicked so many times and got my rear end handed to me that I understand how I can support other people now to avoid what I had to go through, or not had to go through, but what I did go through.
So you had your ass kicked.
I did. Oof,
You're
oof,
saving me from getting my butt kicked.
oof,
And now we're hopefully
oof.
going to save everyone else.
Yeah, we can kick your butt before life does.
There you
And
go. There you go. Yeah.
yeah, so it really does get fascinating because everybody, life is, this whole phrase that we start with, life is hard. Every day, I mean, if either you're facing a mountain right now or you've just gotten through one, and if you're mountain free right now, get ready because they're coming. Because life is really, really hard. And doing life alone is really difficult, which is what I was doing. I was hugely successful, but yet I'm alone. I'm doing things alone. I'm a one man show. Uh, I didn't want to be. I thought I was doing the right thing, but when I became other focused and much more other focused, I was much more successful than I felt I was earlier in my career
Yeah.
because I was just so driven.
Yeah. And that's just one of the many things we're going to talk about, including for our next episode. You said that you were doing things alone. In contrary, I never felt that because I had parents. We're going to specifically talk about
Yeah.
our dads,
Go
our
ahead.
influence. But you had this feeling of being
I
alone,
had,
perhaps, or
yeah,
being,
I was alone,
yeah,
and I was trying to please my dad. I was trying to get dad's approval
yeah,
because he was a hard charger. My dad was just a very demanding man, and
yes.
I strove for that, and at a lot of cost.
And I did not have that experience.
Right.
I had a father who just fanned my flames and encouraged me and pushed me, but in good ways. And we're going to talk about how to use those types, both influences, because you and I both are motivated and driven.
And I'd love the listeners to comment with us on how life has kicked your butt. What's happened in your life and share with us, you know, are you still struggling with it or have you figured it out? Have you solved it? How have you solved it? Because Haley and I are learning too. We're still learning. Everybody thinks I got this handled at this stage in my life. That's not true. I want to learn. I want to learn something new every day. And I welcome our listeners to send us comments and thoughts and how can we support you? What's a comment? What's a topic you'd like us to cover as we go through this? Um, this whole idea of you don't know Jack. I mean, it obviously it's a play on words, but this we want this to be fun for the listener, and we want to answer your questions.
Yeah, because as much as we're going to be sharing about ourselves, it's really about the listeners.
That's right.
So they're going to lead. You are all going to lead our content, lead our episodes. I'm
Good
excited.
stuff. Yeah. So everybody, that brings us to a close just for today's episode one. Just so you're aware, Haley has a book out. Haley, tell us a little bit about your book, the title, and how they might get it, and then I'll give a close for us.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. The title's Personal Podium. And it was after Jack told me to not create a business like he had. It allowed me to dive back into what my real mission is. So, Personal Podium available on Amazon.
And I fully endorsed that book, by the way. I
You're
gave
on the
her,
front page. You're
I,
on the
I
cover
believe,
page.
I believe in Haley's work. She's top notch. My book is called Mountains Within is the title. The subtitle is A Life of Achievement, A Quest for Meaning, and the Mountain That Changed Everything. Because if you're watching this, you're going to see behind me is my son when he was 12 years old. We summited Mount Kilimanjaro, and when I was on the mountain, I realized that the mountain was just like my life: tumultuous, exhilarating, chaotic, anxiety-ridden, fearful, driven, and so on and so on. So that was what motivated me to write the memoir. It'll be out in the next few months, and I'm very excited about that. So we welcome you to follow us on LinkedIn, connect with us on our websites, whatever that might be. And until that, we'd love to hear from you and let us know how you're doing. So it's really been a pleasure being with all of you. If this makes sense to you, we just want you to be aware that you can keep studying Haley's and my work as we just mentioned. And just to reiterate, Haley's book is called Personal Podium, and it's available anywhere you can buy books. And my book, coming out soon, is called Mountains Within, A Life of Achievement, A Quest for Meaning, and the Mountain That Changed Everything. We'll see you in our next episode.